Welcome to episode 5 of our show, The More We Get Together, Conversations That Build Bridges, or as we like to affectionately call it, the Itsy Bitsy Zoomcast.
I'm thrilled for tonight because, as always, our focus for series 1 is connecting practicum students to their field. So tonight I have 2 more students from HCC's practicum course. With me tonight, I have Samantha LaCroix and Shannon LaChapelle. So thank you. The 2 of them worked really hard to prepare for tonight. And we have our special guests tonight, Evelyn Markham and Vanessa Pashkoff, and I'd like them to introduce themselves and say a little bit about who they are, where they work, and what they're passionate about. So Evelyn, could you start?
Absolutely. My name's Evelyn Markham. I'm the director of the Springfield College Child Development Center. I have been working in early childhood education for nearly 30 years. Started off as a classroom aide and just absolutely loved it. And I actually began my education at Holyoke Community College with Gloria Labatt. Many moons ago. So that was an awesome experience. And I actually, used to bring my nephew to college with me in the practicum classroom down at I think it was the kids' place. Or that was, we used to have them in class over there, and it was a great experience, and I absolutely loved it. And through all the transitions in my life, early childhood education has always been my main focus, and so I went on to pursue my bachelor's and then master's degree in early ed. So that's who I am. Thanks.
Oh, we're thrilled that you're here, Evelyn. And I was very lucky because my daughter, Marianne, who does the art for the Itsy Bitsy Zoomcast, was in Evelyn's toddler room. Evelyn was her toddler teacher, and we just adored that time that our daughter Maggie had with her. So I'm just so excited that you're here talking with us tonight. All right, Vanessa, tell us about yourself. We're thrilled that you're here.
I am honored to be here. My name is Vanessa Pashkoff, and I am new to the Western Massachusetts area. I'm originally from Toronto, Ontario, Canada, and this is my 13th year teaching in the early ed world. And I am currently back in the classroom teaching at the Williston Northampton Children's Center. And I am in a toddler classroom, and it's just reigniting everything that needed to be reignited. I have a background in facilitating workshops, and I'm recently trying to dip my feet in a little bit in doing more writing and advocating for what we do as early childhood educators. And, I am just, any excuse to talk about the power of play is very exciting for me.
Oh, I'm so glad. So tonight, to start off, Samantha has a quote to kick us off while we talk about sharing and talking about the power of play.
So we're going to start off with a quote by Jean Piaget. Children require long, interrupted periods of play and exploration.
Wow, long, uninterrupted periods of play and exploration. Wow. Shannon, tell me, you've been taking classes at HCC, you've been working in the field for a long time. Shannon, as a student about to graduate, what does that quote mean to you, that children require these long, uninterrupted periods of play and exploration?
To me, this quote means children should be provided daily with long periods of play where children are in charge of their learning experience. When children are provided with meaningful play, they are able to grow and learn in every learning domain. Play is the primary source of a child's learning and development.
Yeah, I think everybody here would agree with you. Evelyn, how about you? What does that quote mean to you in your daily work?
So what I think it means to me is that children really need to be engaged in play and be able to use what they're learning through play in all areas of their life. So they need to practice those skills. And I think that's what Piaget was saying. You only really become engrossed in those skills when you practice them over and over and begin to get mastery in play. So, and then, you'll see those skills that they're learning in the classroom or just playing with their peers. They're using some of that language and some of those skills in other areas of their lives. And that's what I think Piaget meant. They really need to be engrossed in play so that, you can see it all throughout their day and you know, the many transitions that they go throughout the day and throughout their lives.
I love that opportunity to practice. And I always loved sharing that I wanted children to have opportunities to practice and make mistakes in a safe place, you know, so they could try those skills. And sometimes they don't go right, but we're right there to be with them on that journey. How about you, Vanessa? What does that quote mean to you?
The two words that pop out in that quote for me are uninterrupted and exploration. And I just see flashing lights behind both of them, because for me, I think when I went to teachers college, there was this expectation that you are a teacher. You are there to teach and to tell and to guide. And throughout my years, I've really done a lot of questioning about that and recognizing that guide is the key word for me, and that children can actually teach me and teach us way more than I think a lot of us sometimes realize, or at least my traditional training had said. And exploration, Evelyn, what you said about practicing and mastering skills, it just, honestly, it's so exciting to hear that, because that is what they're doing. Uninterrupted play is work, and seeing children tinker and get messy and ask questions and fail is what exploration is, and it's so important.
You know, when I have go ahead, Liz. We do that all the time. Really Zoom.
The power of what happens in dramatic play, that when you know, some folks call it housekeeping, but when children are in there, they are reenacting scenes from their life. That's why you always want to have baby dolls in there, and the stove, and changes of clothes. They're reliving experiences they had at home. They're remembering the doctor's office trip and where they got a shot in their arm. That's why it's good to have lots of you know, the different materials that you need, so kids can reenact, and that is mastery. It makes me think of when a child always goes to blocks and only wants to play with trains. Some people might get worried because they only can see that through this sort of adult perspective of, why are they only playing with trains? But there's so much that's happening for a child when they repeat something over and over again. There's a mastery there. Sometimes there's a comfortableness and a confidence in doing what they know well, but they're figuring things out, and you just have to trust that that's okay.
I know. You know, I think back to when my first job in a classroom, I was hired on a hunch. I think I had not gone to any formal educator training. I had a degree in a totally different field, and they said, we'll hire you, but you need to go to HCC and take child development. So I had a bachelor's in something else. So I start working at this school, and they hand me their daily routine, and it said 2 hours of free play. And I thought, what am I going to do because I had no background in the field at all, right? I'm 21. I had never taken an ed course. And I thought, what am I going to do with them for 2 hours? But at the same time, I took child development with Professor Mary Lynch at Holyoke Community College. And in no time, I was like, mind blown, right? It was like one of those moments where like the gates open and you see everything all at once. And I thought, 2 hours isn't enough. Mm-hmm. I can do so much. So that uninterrupted period of play, you know, that my naiveness starting in the field, thinking that's so long, and then realizing, oh, we could play forever. We could play forever. So we're off to such a great start already. And Samantha has some more specific questions for the two of you. Go ahead, Samantha.
So the question is, how does play and exploration look at your center or in your classroom? And for Evelyn, how do you as a director support your teachers' implementation of play?
So in our play in our class, I mean, that's really important, those social skills that are happening during play. So we have really large blocks of playtime here, talking about tinkering, and I'm just looking up at lots of materials that we have set up for children, that just different materials that to one's eye may not mean anything, but the creativity that these children, sometimes they're just all wood, like spools and and different kinds of wooden shapes. And then other times we have metal, screws and hanger pieces and all kinds of things that children are just creating and building with and establishing. And I think it's really important. What I try to talk to the teachers about is really understanding the importance of play and being able to explain that to a parent, because we will have parents in the past, and I have had parents say, well, what are you teaching them? What are they doing? Or I come in, just like Sheila was saying, or Liz was saying, and I see my child playing with those trucks all the time. And you want to say, well, your child is learning spatial awareness. Your child is learning how to navigate through the blocks that they've set up. They're creating roads. You know, we want to be able to communicate with our families why play is so important. And all those little things that they're learning throughout the day are going to prepare them for reading and writing and that kind of thing. So learning how to take turns with a peer, learning how to advocate for themselves, learning how to share, and those kinds of things, all happening during play, helps to lead them to being able to sit at a classroom at a desk in kindergarten and you know, work with worksheets and that kind of thing, because we're definitely not doing that here. We need to be out, we need to be moving about, negotiating our environment, having fun, taking risks, taking chances. So that's what we try to do here at the center, and then really try to expound that to the parents. This is what they're learning during the course of the day when they are playing, because it's so important for them.
Samantha, did you have a follow-up question directed for Vanessa?
Yes. How do you as a lead teacher support and nurture play in your classroom?
I'm going to try and fuse what Evelyn said, and I just am excited. So what does it look like in my classroom as a lead teacher? I'm going to kind of jump a bit, but Evelyn, what you just said about sharing it with parents, so exciting and important, because I guess one thing, what it came to mind right away for me is I couldn't quite imagine what the classroom was going to look like this year. And then I decided, stop wondering and just do it. We'll figure it out. We are resilient in our field and we will figure it out. It's a lot of wiping down and cleaning and, you know, rolling with it. But one thing that comes to mind is last week, we noticed there was a big need for heavy work. And it was just, there was this like, you know, they were just seeking it across the board. So we did things like pushing, trying to move the wall and move the building. And then we had an old empty jug of water from the staff room, and we filled it. The children, it took like 2 weeks, filled it with sand, like scooping it, you know, with their own spoons and just trying to make the opportunities for heavy work. And then we noticed that they wanted to build with the things they were using. So they were building with pumpkins and they were falling down. And one of the things that I've learned to help facilitate play, something I say to myself is let it simmer and give it a second. Before I kind of jump in and be like, oh, you can't build up with pumpkins, you know, just let it simmer, watch what happens. And that happened. And one of the older children said, we need blocks. So we said, yeah, we need blocks. So we went and got the big heavy duty, I don't actually know what they're called, but from community playthings, like the big wooden blocks. And we put them out and they were working together. And Evelyn, as you said, it was, you know, they were communicating and working through conflict. And it's not just play. In that moment they created this big structure, and some of them were wanting to go up and some of the children wanted to go down and some of the children wanted to push, and there was conflict and communication. So it wasn't just play, it was math, it was risk assessment, it was language and lots of gross motor building. And so we ended up putting together a piece of documentation to send out to families to, you know, share a little bit more about it. You know, it looks like blocks, but it's not just blocks.
Oh, that's right. I love those really specific examples. Explain for people that may not know in our field what heavy work means and how you notice. So like words like noticed, clue the students in, because they've learned a lot from me about emergent curriculum. But tell us a little more about how you as a teacher notice what they need in their play.
Yeah, there was a good amount of walking and knocking people over. That's kind of how it started. There was some pushing of chairs, just kind of walking by and shoving a chair down, and kind of like, I call it nudgy. I can't think of it, just in my brain. It's just, you know, I imagine my own son. And it can look like different things. I think it can be a little more obvious, like knocking down a chair. Looks like you might need something heavier to push. You want to push something? Let's make a challenge. Or sometimes if there is, I think, a buildup of energy or a need for a different kind of sensory feedback, heavy work is really great for that.
Vanessa, you're reminding me when you talked about them filling up the sand in the jugs. I remember just having a time where kids were kind of crashing into each other, and I almost felt like you're all about to grow, and your limbs have become sort of like there's brains in each one, and they're just doing their own thing right now. And so we asked the parents to bring in empty milk jugs and put them out in the yard and had the kids filling them with water and sand. And basically I would just get them to move them from place to place. And there was really no reason other than I knew that if they had to lift and figure out how to lift and carry these heavy things and get them around the whole yard, that it would get their body moving more, and that maybe whatever they were going through developmentally or cognitively would, like, something would kick in for them if they could sort of get it out. You know, it's like, I would call it getting the yayas out. So that sort of nudging or whatever. But it was fun. And they just would be like, where do we need to move it now? You know, and I'd be like, I think it needs to be by that tree. And they'd, you know, and drag these jugs. And that was the whole point of it. It was simply to move a jug filled with sand from point A to point B. But there, like we've been saying, there was so much that was actually happening for them on so many levels through that process.
So when I hear Liz talking about this creativity that evolved with these jugs from the need for gross motor exploration and movement, and I think about what Evelyn said about creativity. In my office, my parents gave me a gift a few years ago. And it's a framed picture, and it's all children's blocks, you know, the traditional ones with the letters, but it's a quote from Albert Einstein, and it says, creativity is intelligence having fun. And it's just my favorite quote, because when we give children those long interrupted opportunities for play, you see creativity, not just in the way they manipulate materials, but in the way they interact with each other, or in the way they plan their play or articulate their play. And you know, Evelyn touched on this early on. One of my toughest skills to hone as a teacher when I was very new was sharing with parents how I knew their children were learning, even though I wasn't sending home things that they may have visualized as traditional evidence of learning. So that was just one of the hardest skills for me to learn as a new teacher. So Shannon has a couple of questions for the both of you about how we have those conversations. So Shannon, do you want to ask that question that you prepared?
What are some effective ways to communicate the power of play with parents on a regular basis, especially now in the time of COVID when families can't enter the buildings?
Either of you can start.
So that it has been extremely tough not having the parents come into the building. So we're using a lot of iPads and things, and we're taking lots of pictures of children, and we're sending them to their families and talking about what the children are learning. We're setting up a bulletin board kind of in the kitchen area, which typically you don't want to have bulletin boards out there because that's not where parents used to spend their time, but now that's the only space they can be in. And just talking about with pictures of children using materials and say, what are they learning? And I have these, you know, little forums, and it's talking about like group time, like When I contribute my ideas to a group discussion, I learn to use language purposefully. I learn to express and exchange ideas and feelings and gain information. And we could set up a nice bulletin board with those kinds of quotes and actual footage of children working on those kinds of skills, just so that they can see what their children are gaining through play. So I think that's a really important way to do it. I think the daily communications the teachers have with them via email and sending them photos and things like that also help a lot, because it is tough when they can't come in. And, you know, we have a program which we really enjoy. We don't tell the children that their moms and dads generally are here. We let them just watch and see what their children are engaging in. And that's what I really love. And so unfortunately with COVID that we can't do that, we have to find another way to express to them what their children are learning. And so having bulletin boards and things that we can really show, or, you know, some ideas of what your children are learning through play is super important. And so we have one of these bulletin boards here, where the children are, you know, this is them with their mask on, and the teachers just kind of took a photo of their eyes. And the children had these really rich discussions about, what do you think, you know, Ryan is thinking right now? What is Ryan doing? What do you think is on Ryan's mind? Is he happy? Or, you know, just kind of giving some keywords and then letting them just have these rich conversations. So they'll be sitting at snack time, just chit-chatting away about how Ryan is feeling. And it's, you know, you just sit there and go, wow, you really got that from his eyes. And that's important. And you know how the eyes are the soul. So, you know, to listen to these young 3- and 4-year-olds having conversations about what they think their buddy Ryan is feeling behind his mask has been beautiful to witness.
Thank you. Vanessa, tell us a little bit about the ways you like to communicate with parents so they know all about the development and learning happening with the play that you design and promote.
I love to set up classroom blogs. I think, you know, the phrase pictures are worth 1,000 words, but you know, you don't always know what you're looking for. So I think setting up an opportunity with a visual, sharing photos, and also sharing a little blurb with the photo, what's happening in the photo. Might just be sculpting with Play-Doh, but they're developing fine motor skills and just giving more information. At Williston Northampton Children's Center, we are also in the practice of sending home daily sheets. So there's a little glimpse of the day that you can talk with your child about. We send a weekly email home. We actually just wrote ours today about light play that happened beautifully and organically. And this week, it seems like maybe that's our new curriculum. It started with a child noticed a ball of light, he called it, on the ceiling, and it just turned into so many more questions about light. And then we just put some flashlights out, one for each child, and saw what they did. So we wrote an email explaining how play is work and what we were noticing in all of this. Also, yeah, that's it.
You know, I just want to say that when you're doing documentation panels and thinking about how you're sharing information with parents, I'd love to, if I could give one piece of advice to people, it would be to free yourself from thinking that you're only supposed to show the end product and the final result. And that actually, what can be really helpful for families is to see the work in progress. So how do you share children's thinking? And that's through pictures, through a video, and with a little bit of text, is as important or perhaps more than the end result. And I hate to say this, but it's not the destination, it's the journey. But really, how to highlight and show play is by showing the process more than the product.
Oh, Shannon and Samantha have heard me lecture about that so much. I saw Samantha beam when you said that, because she said, ooh, is that Sheila talking or Liz? I can't believe how much beautiful content came out of this short conversation tonight. I want to say a big thank you to my students, Shannon and Samantha, who planned with Liz and I and facilitated tonight, but the entire class works online during the week to prepare and discuss the topics so that we know how we want to steer the conversation. And a special thank you to Evelyn and Vanessa. You're wonderful guests. You're doing amazing work in Western Massachusetts with our early childhood community, learners, and families, and we're thrilled to have your voices tonight. You can find links to their programs on our show notes. And I really want to thank everyone who's really being a part of this. It really means a lot. If you're looking for any more information about the power of play or how to bring play into your classroom, if you're on the HCC Facebook page, there are comments that have a bunch of resources and links for you. If you're on YouTube, look in the show notes and you can find all those resources there. Be on the lookout for our next episode. So episode 6 is going to be all about what early childhood programs have learned from the pandemic that they might want to keep going further, going into the future past the pandemic. So our guests then will be Donna Danette from Children First in Granby and Cynthia Soriano, who's an HCC early childhood alum and teaching at the People's Institute in Northampton. So they'll be on for our next episode. And tonight we're excited to announce that our finale episode, which will be episode 7, our special guest will be the Commissioner of the Department of Early Education and Care, Samantha Agner-Trewergy. So we're thrilled that she'll be on. So stay tuned to the HCC Facebook page because there will be a watch party in early December.
Yes, thank you so much to EEC, Strong Start, UMass Boston, Career Pathways, and the HCC Itsy Bitsy Zoomcast team. And also a special thank you to the early childhood professionals out there who have been viewing our episodes and also sharing them. We really appreciate it. It means a lot to us. This has been such an exciting project to be a part of. Thank you so much.
All right, we have one quote from our friend, Mr. Rogers.
Right.
We always end with our Mr. Rogers quotes.
Yes, from the wise and wonderful Mr. Rogers, he said, play is often talked about as if it were a relief from serious learning, but for children, play is serious learning. Play is really the work of childhood. So with that, we bid you adieu, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you.